Hey, you're here, you made it. Before we started this, we were on water. Yeah, only half full. Only half full. Oh, it's half full.
Hi, Jake.
Hey.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is 1:04. And for a variety of reasons that we need not delve into, we are 4 minutes late in starting. Somewhat due to my fault. And directed wrist slap for that problem. And we'll start as usual by the call to order and the Pledge of Allegiance. We begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So roll call is next. And it looks like all the committee members are present, so we can do everything by voice, right? Yep. Okay. You got a note for me?
Public request.
Okay.
Speaking on number 11.
Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. So roll call. I'll just go in the order here of the agenda. Flint Nelson here, Bill Stewart, Peter Hensley,
Here.
Patty Townsend Smith.
Here.
Okay. We are all here. We do not need to seat an alternate, although Chad, if you are here and alternating, we are happy that you're here. There you are. Like the shirt. Additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda. Staff have anything?
None from staff.
Well, I would like to potentially add something. I received a text message from Julie Johnson.
Okay.
Expressing interest in this committee. And in fact, she indicated to me that she was planning on attending here today, but I don't see her.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything from Julie? Yep. Did you hear from her that she was not going to come as well?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Just-
Because the reason I was raising it is that I wanted to ask the committee, had she been here, how do we feel about her desire potentially to join this committee? Because that's what she had expressed to me. But I'm not sure that we can really make that an agenda item, given that she is not here. I do not have a formal expression of desire to be on the committee. She just simply had indicated that she was concerned about the committee, not in a bad way, but interested, and that she would try to attend. So I think what I'll do is put the committee on notice that we may at a future meeting see Julie, and we may be considering a request from her to be added to the committee. Fair enough? So it's really not just an announcement.
Okay.
Okay, item 6. Approval of the agenda. All those in discussion about the agenda? Okay,
I move we approve the agenda.
okay, moved.
Second.
Pete seconds. Okay, so Bill moves, Pete seconds. All those in favor of the agenda, say aye. Aye. All opposed? There are none. Public comment. Okay, I have 2 slips. One is for item 11, which we are not yet on. And I don't think so. Let's see here. Okay, and the other is from Rick. And Rick, did you want to comment when we get to a certain agenda item, or do you want to comment now? What's your pleasure? Well, do you want to go now?
Yeah.
Off agenda.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Go now. And use the microphone, please. Thank you, thank you. All right, Rick, have at it.
So first thing I wanted to talk about was, some of you may be aware, this is on the Rainbow website. This is MWD, Metropolitan Water publishes this. This is Table D. Table D lists all the reservoirs that feed us. Of particular interest is Lake Skinner affluent over here near my finger. So one of the problems before, in terms of as a grower, avocado grower, is water qualities. Sodium chlorides. I've talked and submitted stuff. The expectation has been for a while that Colorado River problems, less Colorado River, more state water project. And I've been to Eastern with Jake and yeah, you just mentioned Julie.
Yeah.
And just an aside, Julie's very engaged and I think she'd be an asset. But anyway, so there was a goal, there's been a goal stated to get state project water, the mix in Skinner to at least 25, no more than 25% state project water. Ideally, we'd like to see it 50%. It has been 50% in the past. And this is a metropolitan control the valve thing. So unfortunately, this is December's the most current. I pulled it off the Rainbow website this morning. Thanks for posting these. We're only at 13%. Chlorides, which are very detrimental and nothing a grower can do to manage that, are at 97. At 100, well, it's fatal. And we've had short water year. We're just slowly killing the groves. Sodium, the other problem, which we can mitigate somewhat with gypsum, is also in the very high 90s. What I'd like to do, have the committee recommend to the board to work with FPUD, Valley Center, everybody that's fed from Skinner, Escondido, and go to Metropolitan, the other districts through the Water Authority, us through Eastern, and get this goal nailed down. There is no reason on God's green earth why we can't have more state project water coming into Skinner. It's a management decision by Metropolitan. So I encourage you, if you like eating California avocados, to pursue. Let's see if we can formalize this. I know we've talked about it. We're in agreement. Second item I'd like to mention is with the new rates and the detachment, and we've talked a lot about fixed charge, variable charge. I thought I saw in the newsletter, I didn't bring it with me, but there was verbiage that we were going to see substantial reductions in fixed charges on meters and such. Well, this is the July 21st rate sheet, a 2-inch meter, which I have. It's where I should have highlighted this. Give me a second. Oh, 782.61. So I pay 782.61, and that's up quite a bit. This is the brand new Merry Christmas, December 1st. And I went screaming down to $766.97. And I'm going, where's the savings? Where's the detachment savings? Amen. That's it.
If I could jump in on this, first of all, I thank you, Rick, and I appreciate your concern. I think there are people here who are more knowledgeable and smarter than me about this, but I thought, and maybe incorrectly, that the reduction in rates was on the unit costs that we pay for water and not on the fixed or the variable fee. Have I got that wrong?
For the ag, for Rick's customer class, the ag, the fixed cost did go down between 1% and 5%, depending on your meter size. And then the variable cost went down 5%. Yeah.
And I'm not PSAR because I opted out of it because it's too risky. I can smell. And I understand PSAR customers discussion last year, those rates. So I haven't seen where the final is.
That is the final, what we posted. It's all one rate. It's all one rate. Yeah.
Yeah, just be started with water.
That's right.
We said before, it's very disappointing. And I understand the district's role to minimize risk, and, you know, in an ag district, that's difficult, but the burden is, this is very disappointing. And I understand all the reason why I was here for. Just wanted to put that out there, so what's left to, where are the other costs? Overhead. DNA. No, something's gotta give besides us.
But we will be having a little discussion on that in a bit, but it may not be the be all end all that you're looking for.
I'm just keeping it on.
Mr. Chairman, I've been
If you would
wondering-
like to speak, please go to the mic. I recognize you
All right, Barney.
both formally and visually.
Dwayne Urquhart, thanks. I was looking at your agenda and I wasn't quite sure, but given Rick's lead off, and the like, I figured that it was probably better for me to follow up now. So Teresa, I apologize for the other item, but as I mentioned previously in prior board meetings, Rick and I and a number of other farmers were very active in getting the detachment, lobbying for the detachment with LAFCO and the like. And obviously, one of the major reasons that we were pushing on that is for farmers, okay? And water is critical to us, and the cost of water is critical to us staying in business. And I've been in Rainbow for over 45 years as a ratepayer and the like. And part of the reason that we moved a lot of our agricultural operations into Rainbow was because this district was very ag water friendly and very ag supportive. And what I'm concerned about and playing catch up, because most of my time a year or so ago was invested in getting the detachment and the arguments and the information and so forth. So now I'm playing a little bit of catch up based on what has transpired in the last year with Rainbow. And I had a very good, frank meeting with Jake a couple of 3 weeks ago, and I appreciate his time and his input alike. And so I've been reading up on some of the information and some of the assumptions. In the newsletter that was just published and partially reiterated in the June 2023 study, it indicated that in 2007, Rainbow sold approximately 30,000, if I'm using the right term, acre feet of water. It's down to now about 10,000 acre feet of water, according to the newsletter and the report. We've seen graphs, and I think you folks have seen from the prior CFO, showing that the bulk of those reduction sales was in agriculture. And then I read through the study that was presumably the one that was the big rate study, that was presumably the one that a lot of your recommendations were based on in developing the policies and so forth for your fixed cost and your unit cost and the like. And it indicates in there in bold that this is what they're proposing as the area transitions from agriculture due to high water costs. I'm trying to find out who in Rainbow is seeking to have us transition out of agriculture. I'm certainly not. I've spent 40 years developing my farm, put a major capital investment in, along with the other farmers and the like, and I haven't heard any outcry for us wanting to get out of the business. And on top of that, what is the major business in Rainbow? I don't know of any manufacturing or Intel or EDAC or any other type, Microsoft, whatever. We don't have a manufacturing base and so forth. Agriculture is, for all intents and purposes, our business. And it's a good business as long as we can stay in business. So I'm very, very concerned that the underlying assumptions on that report are fallacious because this board or this group and ultimately the board is supposed to be representing the ratepayers. The report I looked at was basically designed to provide more stability to the district. Well, I like that concept as long as I'm not going out of business while we're supporting the district. So I gathered a little bit of information, and again, I apologize, I'm playing a little catch up. And I used the 2-inch meter again, because that's what I have. And again, I haven't double verified and double checked these, so take them with a grain of salt. The fixed cost in Fallbrook for a 2-inch, and again, is apparently $283 a month. The fixed cost in Valley Center, and again, some of these forms are a little confusing because they have some add-ons and the like. So again, take it with a grain of salt. $212. Eastern, $33. That's where we are. We're supposed to be going into Eastern. My meter charge in Rainbow, $791. Now, I don't know who, I am assuming that came out of the study, or who was pushing to have agriculture fixed charges jacked up significantly. But the problem that I'm seeing with the overall philosophy here is we have a district that needs to sell more water. It has a natural customer in agriculture that is willing to buy more water if the cost of the water is more reasonable and can support its operations. And instead, what we're seeing is increased fixed rates and increased unit costs. Now, unless there's a philosophical adoption here in Rainbow, whereby the residents of Rainbow say, you know, we understand we don't need agriculture. We don't want agriculture. We just want low residential rates. Okay, that's philosophical discussion, in which case I don't want to bleed to death. I'd rather put myself out of my misery now. Okay, having said that, I think that's a foolish decision. I think agriculture is viable with reasonable water rates, both fixed and unit rates. This district used to have reasonable agriculture and fixed rates and the like, and I was able to sustain a farm. Okay. What happened is with these changes, allegedly probably out of this 218 study and the like, is there has been a beneficial shift in cost to the residential side of the equation and a disproportionate shift in cost over to the agricultural side. And if you want to sell more water, the charts that have been put up before are showing that despite the significant increase in residential users, they haven't brought any additional water sales to the equation. So I think philosophically, we need to have a discussion on what this district needs and wants to be. And I'll just add one other last comment. I got this from the California Avocado Commission, and over the last apparently 5 years, it doesn't break down into specific Valley Center or Fallbrook or Rainbow, but 3,500 acres of producing avocado groves have been taken out of production
What period was that?
in the last apparently 5 years.
Not 5 years. So
Now, I don't know how much of that came out of Valley Center, Fallbrook, Rainbow, but given the fact that those are the significant agricultural water districts in San Diego County, I would suspect that the bulk of that has occurred. And again, it begs the question, why are we putting farms and users and of water and the ability of businesses to increase water sales out of business because we're making the product too expensive. We need a business solution here, and I'm not seeing it. And if I may ask one other question, just a matter of clarification, I was, unlike Rick, a PSAR, customer with the Water Authority. I wanted to understand if and since the detachment, as a PSAR customer and no longer apparently eligible for PSAL rates, have my costs gone up since the detachment?
Yes.
Well, which makes the whole effort in the detachment even more ridiculous because the goal here, I'm saying philosophically from an agricultural standpoint. Okay. I am from an agricultural standpoint, I don't see the benefit of being penalized by getting out of PSAR if that's what effectively has occurred.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, yes. And I hear you on that.
Mhm.
Not penalized. If you were still a PSAR customer, your rate would not have been lower because Water Authority rates went up by 15%. But it's true that benefit was kind of already there for the PSAR customers, right? They stripped out those charges, right? So that was the basis behind that. But
Thank you for the
I understand.
clarification.
Yeah, I understand.
I have a question for you, if you don't mind. My negative reaction there was that you are saying that you are being penalized by detachment, but had we done nothing, the increase that you would have seen would have been gigantic compared to what has happened. So we have tried to minimize the damage. Secondly, the study that I was very interested in the study that you brought up about the 3,500 acres of avos. Yeah. There you go. Going out of production. Does that study indicate why the 3,500 acres have been taken out of production? Does it state clearly why that is with some kind of empirical result?
I haven't checked all the detailed footnotes, but as a second generation avocado farmer, I can tell you predominantly it's related to water and imports. Okay?
Imports.
Now, having said that, the imports is the world that we live in. Okay. Rainbow Water District and farmers here in San Diego County can't necessarily affect global trade arrangements, although we're working on that. Okay. But it needs to be a combination of balanced trade volume coming in, but we also need to get our fixed costs down so that we're in a position to be able to compete effectively. We have very high water costs and foreign suppliers have very low water costs. That naturally puts us at a disadvantage. If all things being equal, I'll compete with any foreign supplier in the world, all things being equal. But thank you.
Unfortunately, I guess we don't live in a world where all things are equal. I mean, that's just the way we are. And nothing saddens me more than to see beautiful avocado groves on hillsides suddenly turned into stumps or letting go wild, I guess you would say. And I come from a part of the country where agriculture is very big and was a very significant part of my family's life. And despite that, I have had a number of associates tell me that the primary reason why we are having trouble with some of our ag industries is, yes, water, FERT. There's some other things that increased. FERT's gone up dramatically as well, as you well know. But I've had a number of knowledgeable friends in the ag area tell me that the basic problem we have is the incredibly low cost of imported ag products. And I don't know what we do about that. I mean, we can talk about water, and I guess since you're here, water is really the only topic to talk about. But when I think about it in a much larger sense, I am worried that we are like Sisyphus trying to push the incredibly heavy stone up the hill, And the Hill is fundamentally as much about, if not more about, the low cost of imported avos and other products compared to our inability to control our costs. And I don't know. I mean, it's a debate that will swirl on, I think, for a long time.
Well, fortunately, I've done a little research on that and I can share with you that it's actually a combination of things. If we can lower our imports from 60 million pounds a week, for example, to 50 million pounds a week. Now, bear in mind, 50 million pounds a week is still a lot of guacamole, okay? But that delta combined with lower water costs would actually put us at a sustained price. So to your question, fundamentally, yes, both sides of the equation need to be worked on. And you are also correct. I mean, we're working and concentrating on the water side of the equation for a couple of reasons. One, we've all seen water increase, but based on fixed charges and other aspects, we're feeling it more in the agricultural standpoint. And you're seeing it by people turning off their water. Jake and he was kind enough to pull up the satellite imagery. I've got 20 acres near where my farm is in South Morro Hills. I will tell you again, as a farmer, the South Morro Hills is one of the richest, beneficially endowed, if you would, with soil, climate, topography, agricultural areas that you will find in the world. When 20 acres right next to me of avocado trees just recently turned their meter off, you got a problem, because if you can't grow in South Morro Hills, you can't grow anywhere. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate the
Perhaps-
comments.
Huh?
Appreciate the comments.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do. And I think in the interest of time, we probably should move on to item 8, approval of minutes. All of you have received the minutes that were thoughtfully prepared by Therese and her team. Are there any suggested changes or comments to the minutes of our last meeting? If not, looking for a motion.
Move to accept the minutes as written.
Pete moves,
Second.
Bill seconds. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Okay, comments and requests. General Manager, that's you, Jake.
Yes, a couple things. I'll keep it quick, but try to keep it pertinent to this group as well. But we have hired a new finance manager, CFO. We have an accepted offer, candidates in background, tentative start date the 24th of this month. So just in time for budget season. So good candidate from another agency, South Orange County agency, and but we'll introduce when he gets here. But
Can you like give a name and
the name's Constantine.
minor resume, just a brief
Yeah.
highlight resume?
Yeah. Name's Constantine Shilkov. Most recently with SACWA, the South Orange County Wastewater Agency. Been there for was there for quite a few years. Deep accounting, finance experience. That's his education, that's his background, that's his experience, which we really like, obviously. But also a really good background in some IT implementations and things like that, which is also a real key for us. Also has some customer service background, which that's a department that he also will oversee. And so we're pretty excited. We had a good group of candidates.
24th?
The 24th.
Okay.
Yeah, 24th. So we'll be welcoming him aboard, and it'll be nice to have a finance manager again.
It will indeed. I agree with that.
It will.
Thank you. Anything else, Jake?
Sure. We're going to go through the mid-year budget, which is, I would say, less eventful this year than it has been in the last couple. But that kind of leading into actually going through the upcoming budget year, the 25-26 budget year. And so we're planning on doing the workshops again. I think we did 3 last year. I think we're gonna cut it to 2 this year, but April and May we're gonna try to do a joint committee board, and see if we can get everybody on board with that. So we'll do a couple of those again this year.
Now, Therese sent out a note either late yesterday or early today asking if we could be available. Can you, and I knew we would be here, so I figured I would just respond here, Therese. I'm very open and flexible. What exactly are you proposing?
Thank you. A joint meeting on May 6th, instead of having the budget and finance on May 13th, have a joint budget and finance and engineering and operations meeting on May 6th.
Okay.
I think
And
there was some scheduling involved in that too, a conference. I think the Aqua
Yeah,
Conference.
yeah,
is
Aqua,
a-
right.
Right.
Okay. So, and that would be budget and finance and E&O. And would it also be joint with the
With the
board?
With the board. Correct.
Do we
Similar to
have-
what we did last year.
Do we have a big enough room?
We'll
We have
fit the
big enough
seats.
table?
We'll get the seats. Yeah.
Okay, well, I can certainly agree to do that, and I can't speak for Pete or Patty or Bill, but I'm in favor.
Wonderful.
My schedule's up.
Yep. Patty,
you.
you okay?
Yeah, fine. I'd
Pete,
rather
you okay?
Should be.
All right, sounds like you've got the 6th.
Thank
lots
you.
of conflict between.
No, we don't. And I'll send out information about the April, what we're proposing for April shortly too.
Yeah.
Say that again?
I'll send out some more information on what we'll propose for April.
Okay.
So that'll be a nice one. The May one in particular, just because we can get that in, and then it gives a little bit, gives a nice cushion between the May board meeting too. So plenty of time to kind of respond, take the feedback, and wrap it into a formal presentation to the board in May, and hopefully kind of wrap things up from there. But again, planning those workshops again. We just an update on all the detachment stuff. This might be the last one, I think. But we did complete the exit fee payment, so that was finalized on January 30th, which was the night, basically the 90-day window from the effective date of detachment. So that was complete. The lawsuit that was brought against us and LAFCO and others, that's all been dropped. So with completion of all the items that we had to do, that was part of it. That just could that's been thrown out. And LAFCO is done. So we sent a letter. Teresa and I sent a letter to LAFCO, let them know we had fulfilled our obligations on the exit fee and everything else. And so the good news on this is just a little bit of good news, but good news on that is we actually gave LAFCO a deposit because we indemnified everybody as part of those proceedings. So we were paying LAFCO's legal costs split with Fallbrook, right? Us and Fallbrook were, and so, but because it got settled so quickly, we're actually getting half of that money back. So they, there was money that was spent, but it's only about 25 grand, but
Okay.
we are getting
Free money, right?
that's what they said. Here's the balance, and we'll be sending you a refund check. So
We'll take it.
it's
Better-
nice to get something back.
Better
right?
than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But that was one of the reasons why settlement was so important too. I mean, we were covering not only LAFCO's, we were covering Eastern's, LAFCO's, our own. It was our proceedings.
So we were indemnifying all of this.
We have absolutely, and that was all part of the initial agreements that were agreed upon when we started the process. So, or when the district started the process. So that was that. So that was a good one. I was going to give you a quick update just because we're about to get a big storm, so that's good. Our demand has gone to nothing already, so it's good for the farmers. So it's good that they get some relief. We've had. We'll talk a little bit about water sales, but water sales are up. It's been very dry down here in the south. But that's really not the story, which I was a little surprised on the state water project blend into Skinner, because on the state water project side, things look pretty good. They're already at a 20% allocation, which is a okay allocation, but given how dry it's been, but that's reflects two major things. One being the north has actually seen some storms, so there's decent snowpack up north, and the water reservoirs are full. They're not full, but they're well above average for this time of year. So the state's starting from a really good point on the state water project. With the storms that are coming, it sounds like we'll probably be above average for the water year, both in the snowpack and on the reservoir side. So the anticipation will be probably in February that allocation will likely rise, which means, when they get to about 30% allocation, given Met's current demands, that means no water comes out of storage. They don't have to draw it all on storage. All the demands are met by the import supplies. So anyways, we'll see how February and March go, but this is a good start to February. And to be honest, it looks like, shaping up to be another decent water year, even though it's been very, very dry down here in the south. The import supplies are doing pretty well. So
Jake, I have heard many times and continue to hear that storage is full.
Mhm.
Storage is full. And I happened to be going to play golf down in the Rancho Santa Fe area yesterday.
Yep.
And I drove by Lake Hodges,
Oh, that's not full.
and that is not even freaking close to full. I mean, it is, whew.
So a little drama there. Yeah. Yeah, a little, and I've been through this before. I've been through this before with the project up in the Temecula area. But basically that Hodges Dam has been deemed unsafe.
Unsafe.
Yeah, or it's just not in good
Has it
condition.
been leaking water, or have
I-
they had to release against pressure to
Usually,
make sure it's not too much?
yeah,
pressure?
usually there's some design flaw. I mean, thing's 100 years old.
Yeah.
And so, but there's a lot of drama surrounding that. City of San Diego has water in there. Rancho Santa Fe has water in there. City of Encinitas takes water, from that lake. All of them have been impacted. That's their alternate supply, right? And it's a much cheaper supply.
And so they basically can't fill the reservoir because the weight will create too much pressure on the faulty
actually-
dam. Is that the theory?
It's actually DSOD. So DSOD, when they have these high hazard dams or that have been deemed not up to snuff, basically, what they'll do is they come in and set you a maximum water level. So basically, you can't store water at a certain level behind there, and they gave a very low level to the Hodges Dam, and so any bit that comes in there, they just have to let it go.
They have to release it.
Yeah.
We had a problem like that with the San Francisco water and the Hetch Hetchy system.
Mm.
We had a couple of reservoirs that we fed for local water districts, and they were earthen dams, and you could just see the bow. You could see the bow, and the bow was just getting bigger. And finally, we just had to take water levels down, which caused a tremendous amount of difficulty for
Yeah.
those communities.
Right.
But we just could not risk. And those were not dams that were controlled by us. They were dams that were controlled by the local
Yeah.
water entities down there, but it was just too scary. We couldn't take the liability, so we just had to really dramatically reduce how much water we
So
gave
and the
them.
responsibility of those to fix down at Hodges too. Hetch Hetchy, beautiful reservoir, by the way.
Yeah.
But the responsibility of the fix for Hodges is City of San Diego, primarily City of San Diego and the County Water Authority, who actually I don't think has ever taken water from there, but they have emergency storage and they own half of it. So the dam cost will be borne by them, the dam replacement cost.
Well, it'll probably be too damn much, right?
350 million, is that's the current estimate?
So I've lived on Lake Hodges since '83 on the dry side. Used to have water. The state stepped in, commanded that the level go down. Not only is it down, the water authority built a 40 megawatt hydroelectric,
Mhm.
and there's a deal that only works because of artificial rate structure We pump up to a leave-in and when the rates are cheap and we release it back down when the rates all man-made. And that plant is idle. And when they built the building for the plant, when they brought in the turbines, they didn't fit. I mean, it's a joke. The water authority, the lack of engineering, the lack of forethought. It's going to be 10 years, we're currently told, before that dam is fixed. I'm going to the Farm Bureau Water Committee meeting right after this. I have to bolt. Gary from Valley Center is going to be there. He's pretty high up in the Water Authority finance. He threw out a number 400 million. So they're going to build a new dam downstream of the existing dam and then demolish this dam. Now the threat, we're all very high risk fire. I'm with State Farm. We're probably not going to get renewed. There's a push to bring enough water level up to cover the 40 acres that are growing fire hazard now. When next time you go 15 south or north crossing the bridge, look at all the trees. None of those were there before. And it's all just been let go. It's very
Well,
disappointing to
That's
look.
all very sad. And now I wish I hadn't raised it because it's really not germane. It just was a passing thought, but
It's a
there we go.
big deal.
Anything else, Jake?
No, that's it.
Okay. We do not have a finance manager comment. Is that right?
No finance manager comments, and we'll handle some stuff in the mid-year budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Committee member comments. Pete, you got anything?
None.
Patty?
Well, I'm still concerned about my farmers here. Why are they paying more of a higher fixed cost than say, what did you say, Valley Center?
And fall. And in Eastern.
So why is that?
Escondido.
Well, the last cost of service study, which was done in 23. It did look at, and I don't know the exact language as far as how that goes, but I know there was a concerted effort. It was to try to balance fixed cost and variable cost for the farmers in particular, but also for the residential customers. So the residential customers paying a lower fixed cost, but a higher variable cost. So lower water use, but so paying a higher cost on that. For the higher water users, the agricultural customers, a higher fixed cost, but a lower variable rate. So basically the more water you're using, it's a lower rate. I think in 23, it was an attempt to balance those two interests. But that is the reason for the higher fixed cost. It provides a lower variable rate for the high water user.
Okay, I don't,
Yeah.
no, I like that.
If you.
You might just want to carry it back over there with you
Oh,
and you
fair
and
enough.
Rick can share if you plan on
Yeah,
speaking
fair-
some more. Okay.
Fair enough. Thank you. Again, I don't know how recently you have read that report. It's pretty extensive. I don't know what it cost Rainbow to produce it, but I imagine it was a pretty penny. But what's again goes to part and parcel of my concern. If you read the thesis of the report, the primary thesis was creating stability for the district. Okay, not a bad thing. But from a cash flow standpoint, having higher fixed costs provides a more stable revenue stream for the water district. But it doesn't necessarily work for all your ratepayers, and particularly your ag ratepayers. And so what I would suggest is you go back in and read that report, and you'll see what the underlying assumptions are. And again, it really particularly alarmed me when one of the underlying thesis was, well, water costs are just going to go up, so agriculture is going to be gone. I mean, what? Why are we trying to drive agriculture out of business? And I'm
I don't think
saying that
anybody's doing that,
parenthetically.
and we've
I'm saying
kind of
that-
heard this already, so
I'm saying that
give
parenthetically.
us some new info.
Okay. Well, my point is that I think what should be done as part and parcel of this is you should do some replacement pro forma studies, because that one study just had one basic approach. We're raising, and Rick's correct, I mean, Jake's correct. We're raising fixed costs, that'll stabilize the district and the like. Certainly with a computer nowadays and with a new finance manager on board, I think you can run some pro forma assumptions and then hopefully review those and see if you can find a common denominator that works for your ag, works for your residential and your commercial users.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jake, it was, I might be off, but it was my understanding when we did that 2018 study,
13
13,
or 23,
23,
23.
that we were going to revisit that on a regular basis. Is that right?
Well, it's set maximum rates for 5 years.
The rates were not, but the rates still have to be approved each year.
Annually,
And-
correct.
And so my assumption is that there would be a kind of a revisit of the rate to see if anything's changed in terms of assumptions and
Yeah, every year, and we have talked about revisiting that as a whole. So
yeah,
I've encouraged both these guys to stay,
Yeah.
stay involved, and
right.
and we will be looking at,
Right.
those things they constantly evolve. That again, it was done in 2023. It did assume that we were, because of the uncertainty of detachment, that we were staying with the water authority forever. So we had 9% annual increases plus the pass through.
So that's taken us to 13, 14, 15% real quick,
Each
right?
year,
Yep,
yeah,
yep,
each
yep.
year. And so,
So we have some changed assumptions now that it would be
we do.
useful.
Well, and we put those into play, last year we raised,
Yes.
we did 4.5%, and that's all we did. We didn't have to do any pass through January 1. But yeah, those are things that we're going to
And
continue
I
to look
would
at.
support a kind of a significant revisit of that study,
I think the
given
board,
that we've had so much change.
I think the board is interested in that too.
Okay,
So,
good,
and I actually already have a proposal to start on that. So,
Good.
and it's not, here's the good part about that.
Is it from her? Is it from,
Andrea,
yep,
IB.
Yep,
IB.
Andrea.
Yeah, they already have the model. So
Okay,
so
thank you.
that was the thing. We're going to
Yep.
have to, and I told the board this already, we're going to have to, we needed to update the model anyways, which was basically already done. So that's a very low cost kind of thing. But updating the rate model, and then there's some options in there, based on board direction and feedback, what
Mhm.
what the board wants to see, where we can look at some of these things. And so, yeah, we're already moving on that.
And Andrea's-
It'll
she-
probably be part of the calendar year discussion, not just the budget year discussion, because it's gonna, us to run through scenarios
Right,
and that kind of thing.
right.
But that is happening, and so
And
we-
Andrea knows our system very well. She's
She does.
very smart. And fortunately, she struck out on her own. And so we don't have some big corporate behemoth that we're feeding.
no, it wasn't
She's on her own, basically.
not tremendously expensive for an upgrade.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
So it's well worth the small amount of money we'll spend.
Absolutely.
So,
No.
No.
And we're just doing an update. We're gonna update the model.
Here enough.
Yeah. The original, it might have been something like that, maybe 75.
mhm.
Um,
So
Right.
then most of the
Yeah.
meetings in tug of war, we got lower fixed, higher fixed.
And there was Tom's attempt to try to find a substitute for the weird label we have, which is the variable fixed rate or the fixed variable rate or whatever that is. And it was trying to, but anyway, nonetheless, you're right.
yeah.
All that can be revisited.
It's district insulating themselves from any risk at the expense of farmers. That's the way it's worked out. And then to go back to your question about why decline, there are detailed studies, aerial photographs. About 10,000 acres have gone out since the Delta smelt. University of California, San Diego has estimated 1 million trees have been lost. And we can break it down by district, but it's just, and forget the imports. We just can't afford to farm anymore. So the district has grown from the last Fallbrook, FPUD, LAFCO, trying to get us merged. I believe staff was about 50 at Rainbow head count. We're substantially above that now with dramatically less water sales. We've got more staff, and I'm not talking field guys, and expensive staff. And the CFO just rubs me the wrong way, hiring a new guy. Do 2 small water districts really warrant 2 well-paid CFOs. Why can't we find a way to look at some of these administrative costs and share them? There are things that are unique to both districts.
You should come to the board meeting this month.
I've been saying this for a decade.
Come to the board meeting this month.
Okay.
Even when Tom retired, it was a perfect time. I didn't know you and you're a good guy and I'm glad you're here, but that was a perfect time. Do we really need 2 GMs? And if you look at the LAFCO study, the savings in administrative costs that they concluded 10 years ago, or I can't remember the exact study, it was $2.1 million a year savings. That's just G&A costs. Now we've just grown since then. So I'm not seeing the district willing to take any hits. It's all on us. And you guys are safe now. You've achieved a rate structure where you're nuts done. And now with the driest wreck ever San Diego on record since they took records, we're having to pour more money with crappy water onto our trees that reduces yield. So
That should be a record price.
Thank you. Are there any other committee member comments? Bill, you got anything? Patty, did I cut you off? Were you done?
No. My headache is still working. But I wish you would come to the board meeting.
Yeah, it occurred to me during this whole discussion and what you guys have to say, which is, I think, from your perspective at this point, very valid. That there's been an enormous amount of change in the last 5 years, or the last 2 years, even since 23. It's just been phenomenal. I mean, the district has had to undertake a huge amount of debt to pay off our share of the exit fee and to replace some ancient, I'm talking ancient and substandard pump stations, which it had to do. People argue that, but that not if you've been out there, seen them operate, talked to the operations people, watched them go down time after time after time. I mean, it was a necessity. Now all of a sudden we've got this other big nut that is making a payment. And so, when you add that to our capital study, essentially, which talks about what it's going to take to resurrect, 60 years of 60-year-old system. It gets to be crazy what the nut is that has to be paid. Who's going to pay for it is your question. Is it going to be a residential ratepayer? Well, do we have enough residential ratepayers to actually do that, or don't we? Those circumstances that I just mentioned has nothing to do with you guys or anything you have done or anybody sitting here. I think they were 50 years of absolute neglect and not putting a nickel aside to deal with what we call depreciation in the business world, because this district continued to depreciate. When I came on the board, I will tell you, and that was 7 or 8 years ago, I was shocked that we're broke and we've got a system that is running up our labor cost and our number of employees exponentially. You go from, 4 or 5 people to 7 people, then to 9, and then to 11, just to make the repairs that have to be made because we can't replace the pipe we need to replace. So all of those things factor into this. It's not just one thing. And I agree that I came on the board for one purpose, and that was to try to save agriculture. I thought that the combination of the 2 districts, and I'm in the management business, was a terrible idea, because Rainbow's needs and their problems are hugely different than what happens over there. What was being proposed was going to benefit FBUD and was going to kill Rainbow even further, and agriculture in Rainbow even further, if you analyzed it. And so that's why I got involved. And I'm not an agricultural person. I live in a tract house, but I want it to continue to thrive. I think that you do need to be part of the discussion as we take a look at the mid-year budget and as we take a look at what can be done. I was going to challenge you and say, you know, if you could continue to responsibly deal with the money that the district has to raise for its continual capital needs to keep our system operational at the lowest maintenance cost possible, pay off the loans, and comply with Prop 218. And you have a proposal to do that and change the rate structure so that there is a lower fixed cost for ag for the large meters. I'd like to see it in writing.
So I'm gonna turn this right around.
Yeah.
I've been asking for years to review Prop 218, separate ag. Show me where a board, any board, has taken that for action. I also have extremely strong feelings about the detachment. 25 million and the loan, $17 million we paid for pump stations and added costs, which was completely unnecessary. Failure to negotiate. I've been getting water for 31 years via gravity. Now that's a failure to negotiate with the water authority to pay a wheeling agreement. Instead, we caved, paid off early, threat of lawsuits. You know, there's been some bad decisions made by the people involved with this board that got us to where we are today. And I'm not talking about the people in the field. I've been in plenty of places that are broken, the pipes that are broken. We need those guys in the field doing their job. The overhead, G&A, the admin stuff that needs to be, could be streamlined. Hasn't happened. We just continue to add more people. We can talk about this more.
Mhm.
I'd be happy to.
We're gonna,
Yeah,
trust me,
we
Rick,
will.
we're gonna. Anything, Jake, you want to say?
Nope.
Bill, you're done?
I'm done.
Okay, I have a comment. One of them was a question about Lake Hodges, which I promised never to ask again.
Thank
It's
you.
just way more than I needed to know and very unhappy to know. But as Therese noted in the minutes of the November 19th meeting, I had asked then, and I had asked several times previously over the past 2 to 3 years to get a really solid, fine-tuned analysis of our labor
Yes.
expenses.
Yep.
And having not received it yet, I took the liberty of putting together a spreadsheet, which I'm going to give to Jake. It's empty. It's empty. It's a format.
I get to fill it out.
It's a format. And so, yes, I'll keep one for me, pass it around, and also give one, please, to Therese. And I am happy at your command, Jake. I can send this electronically so that it is the real spreadsheet. There are no formulas in the blocks at this point, but this is, and as
Information you're looking for.
is the information I'm looking for, and
like
I have done enough research in prior budget years to have asked for this because I have a concern that our labor costs are, I won't say spiraling out of control, but they are a matter of grave concern to me. And I have expressed this before. And I think that our labor costs are far exceeding inflation. And I think that there are a number of reasons why we have potential labor cost problems. But before I go further, I would like to just get the raw data so that I can then make appropriate judgments or recommendations as it sees fit. And I would hope that I could get this before we get too deep into budget season, whether it's mid-year or into the other.
Yeah.
This is, for those that are not looking at this, this is a 5-year history of our labor costs divided, laid out by the number of FTEs each year and the percent increase each year in full-time equivalents, the amount of direct salaries paid, the amount of overtime paid, the amount of sick leave paid, the amount of PTO that's paid time off accumulated and the amount of PTO paid, how much G&O, G&A, overhead, whatever you want to call it, indirect, all the stuff. In each year, I'm asking for the percent change from the year before. And I'm also asking for a total, and it ends with an average cost per FTE, okay? Because I really would like to see where we are. And if my assumptions are wrong, then I guess I owe this committee and Jake and others
Yeah.
an apology. But I think what I'm gonna find is that our staffing costs have increased substantially, but I want the data. I want hard data. And without hard data, I give up. So there we go.
Need one more detail.
What?
In-house cost be contracting.
Well, I don't think there's much doubt about that. The
Well,
average
no,
hour, the average,
No, wait. If you're gonna go to FTE, full-time equivalents, you need to know how much we were contracting prior to our current staffing level. External costs versus how much we were paying payroll to accomplish. If you don't do that, you won't see the picture.
You might skew things if things moved internal or
Yeah,
whatever.
well,
Yeah,
they moved internal.
Yeah, we'll take a
well,
look.
let's just get the
We'll
raw
take a look.
data here and then we can go
Okay.
to work.
This
on
is a
it,
good
because
start.
What?
It's a great start.
It's a great start. It's a better start than we've ever had, ever. And of course, I admit it up front, I have a very strong bias against contracting out routine staff work. And because I just know that the markup and the overhead on it is just very, very high. So anyway, that's my request turned in. Hopefully, we'll get a result fairly quickly and we'll move on to item 10. Annual appointment of committee chairperson and vice chairperson. I have willingly and I have happily served as your chairman for several years. And while I am happy to continue if that is your will, I am also wide open if there is somebody that would rather take the gavel and feels ready to take the gavel, but whatever, it's open to the committee at this point.
I would recommend that we continue with the two of you, Flint and Bill. Both of you have indicated how much you're into what's going on. You've shown your background about how to find things out. I don't know how we could do any better than the two of you. I recommend that you be reinstalled.
I think that sounds like a motion. Is that a
It is.
motion?
It is.
Is there any second to the
I'll
motion?
second that.
Is there any comment, discussion of the motion? All those in favor, say aye.
Hi.
All opposed? Okay, done. Well, thank you for the trust that you have put in Bill and me and all of you. Thank you for all of your hard work over the past year. Okay, here we go. Item 11, fiscal year 24-25 mid-year operating and capital improvement project budget review. And we have a speaker slip. And it is Diane, who? Dwayne, okay, Dwayne, we know who you are. Dwayne, do you want to speak now or do you want to wait and speak? Is there a protocol here as to whether he speaks now or he waits until we get a staff presentation and speaks? What's the normal?
I think it's up to you.
It's up to me. What's the committee's pleasure? Would you rather have him speak first or give him an opportunity to hear what we have to say?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we got to get an overview from management and then
You okay with that,
And-
Dwayne?
then comment.
In case you hear something that might. Okay,
And I won't be long.
okay.
You
Go,
know,
Jake.
yeah, in general, this year, and I've been working with the finance staff, taking a look at where we're at as far as end of December, so midway through the year. And the last couple of years obviously had very wet weather, difficulty with sales. We had budgeted, you know, in the 12, 13-ish thousand acre feet. And I know last year, at least the one I've been through, you know, we were trending more towards 10. And so that obviously puts some strain on the district finances. That is not the case this year. We budgeted for 10. Sales are trending above that. We're about 20% higher than we were last year. And so those kind of strains aren't present this year. Which, you know, and then beyond that, we've got, you know, midway through the year, took a look at all the operations cost, all the operations centers, and this is everything from salaries and overtime and everything, supplies and services, and really across the board, we're right in line with budget. Everything's at about 50%. I mean, it's uncanny. We're about 49 to 51 almost in every single department. So the budget was well put together. Obviously halfway through the year, those things seem to be very much in line. So we really only have a couple of adjustments to make. And let's see, there we go. So this is actually, we call it operating. It's operating and non-operating. And I believe there's a table in front of you there where we've got a couple of, you know, really both sides of it. And really we were trying to balance, you know, any increases we've got. We were, you know, there's been some changes on the other side to help balance those costs. One of them, I mean, we had anticipated that we were going to, I think we had budgeted 3.4 million. That was anticipation that we would be paying interest on the exit fee payment. That's not going to occur this fiscal year. So there's actually a decrease in cost there this fiscal year. We had a couple of things just internally. We actually accelerated some of our meter installations last fiscal year. So we were, you know, we kind of made a hard charge at kind of wrapping up all the meter replacements that need to take place. Really what that's done is it's decreased the need this fiscal year. So there were some efficiencies in the meter department. We're able to decrease some of those costs. So we're going to reduce those. Also, actually, this is Ahmed and his team. Our customer service had a software need, and they were planning on contracting that out. And Ahmed and his team were able to handle that in-house, so we were able to cut that out of the budget as well. A couple of things we have to adjust our budget for. One, our property liability insurance. So obviously, back in March, we're budgeting for the next fiscal year. We're estimating what those increases are. Property liability insurance went up significantly more than we had anticipated.
And this is not the first year that insurance bill has gone up, is it? It seems like this, I've heard this.
It was
before.
It was very stable for a while. This again, we were, you know, the group funded through the Aqua JPIA,
Right.
And that cost, they intentionally kept their costs very flat through COVID. You know, 2020, 2021, They actually use some of their, what they call their stabilization funds.
Then I thought I heard it.
Yeah. And so the last 2 years have kind of been catch up. They've had some things, and obviously everything associated with property liability has gone up across the state. So not a big surprise, but it is about a $50,000 increase above what we thought it was going to be. So, the other thing is on the tank maintenance contract. So, you know, this was kind of a back and forth where, you know, during the budget season, we had anticipated we were going to cancel that contract, take those services over. We ended up, now, when we did that, we actually approved an amendment to pay off the remainder of the contract that was associated with the improvements that we did.
Mm-hmm.
So there's about a $700,000, you know, they built the stairways and the, you know, the improvements that were done to the tanks, the safety improvements. And with the canceling of the contract, we would have had to basically clear all those costs. So we got the board approval, the committee and board approval to do that. Now, however, with the renegotiation of the contract, which was very favorable to the district, they actually took down the first tank this week. So they took down the Hutton tank, and they're redoing all the interior coatings. In a few weeks, they'll be taking down the Rainbow Heights tank. So they're going to do 2 interiors
This year and 2
for the next 4 years.
Right.
For the next 4 years. So very advantageous to the district. We'd be funding that out of our capital improvement budget, and it would be at a significantly higher cost. But with the extension of that contract through the remainder of 24-25, we need to adjust that budget, basically 522,000. And so, between the budget cuts that we made, the adjustment to the detachment payment, which we've already paid, and then also we have some miscellaneous revenue that's coming in based as a settlement agreement with a contractor. This is kind of an old thing that we finally settled. But that's about 300,000 coming into the district. Basically, there's no net change to the operating budget. So we've netted it all out to zero. So adjustments within the budget,
Right.
no impact overall to the budget.
Couple things
Sure.
Yeah.
that got me. You want to go first?
Well,
No?
I don't know.
Huh?
Doesn't matter.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
No, Jake, I remember that whole tank thing. But 522,000 is a lot of money. Now, is that over a certain period of years? Or what?
It's an annual contract. It's an annual contract. So every year, I mean, it's up every year. So that's this year. We didn't particularly like how it gone the last couple of years. But you know, they had some new management. They stepped to the table, and I think we negotiated a pretty good deal. The thing was just on the budget side, right? Basically, Rick had assumed we were canceling that mid-year, and then the rest of those costs would go away. Now we negotiated. We're getting probably $1 million+ in value by recoding those 2 tanks. But again, now we've extended that contract, so the second half of the fiscal year has to be covered. And again, we've covered that with other, but basically we've made other cuts or income to balance the budget, so it's zero impact.
Okay.
Pete, you got anything?
No.
Bill, you got anything? Because I got a couple things. Go ahead. First of all, my eye was really struck by the fact that the revenue came to the dollar.
Well, we
Exactly.
adjusted that meter budget to we knew we could get 25,000, and so we adjusted it just to zero it out. So
Okay.
so I wasn't saying we're going to add $75 to our operating budget. We just balanced it to zero.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then back to the tank maintenance. I was going along just fine until I think I heard you say that if we took it in-house and we needed to do a major tank cleaning and rehab,
Mhm.
that would show up in the capital budget. That would come out of our CIP. And so my question is, if it's going to be CIP, if we do it in-house, but it's operating budget, if we do it outhouse, help me out here. I mean, at the end of the day, a dollar is a dollar. It's fungible, and it's whether it can be added to our asset base in the balance sheet or not. It seems to me that that's where you get the definition of a capital expense, and help me.
Very, very much so. And it's funny,
Inspector Clouseau would say, I am confused.
yeah.
Okay.
No, you're not. You're onto something here. We actually had this conversation 30 minutes before this started. We were going through our CIP, so we're starting to update the 5-year CIP for the budget season. And that's exactly the conversation we had. When you do a major rehab like that, in essence, what you're doing is extending the asset life, and it really should be capitalized and it should be depreciated.
Mhm.
And so moving forward, as we get these costs in, we'll be working with our new finance manager. Hasn't been done that way in the past. We're going to start doing that but it is a little, because it is a single contract, they do routine maintenance too. So those costs would have
They
to
probably
stay.
don't apportion out their cost to us. They just give us a number.
So so we'd have to estimate kind of when we do
And-
these major rehabs, that
and
goes on
the-
our books.
And the type 1, which is just the cleaning, or the type 2, which is the cleaning and inspection, those would clearly be
O&M.
non-capitalized.
Yep.
That's clearly O&M.
Yep.
But when we take one down, empty it, and just completely overhaul it, then that's capital, right?
It should be.
It
Yes.
should be. I
It should
agree with
be.
you. Totally.
So we are going to we're going to keep those tanks listed on the CIP, and then those, basically as those things get done, we're going to add those asset values into our valuation moving forward.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then my other question is, this is where I get sometimes a little confused with cash position and budgeting.
Mhm.
I have heard that we have had something on the order of $700,000 in operating benefits as a result of early detachment. Okay. And the last time I checked, unless something happened, I think that the board took this committee's recommendation and added that to our cash reserves. And then I don't remember whether we used it to help pay for the lack or for a diminished rate increase or not doing a certain rate increase. So I'm trying to,
Yeah.
and then I think you had reported to us at a previous meeting in engineering and operations, I think, that, or maybe it was in one of your written notes to us, that in fact, we continue to have more benefits from detachment because since we are buying a fair amount of water during a longer dry season, we have saved more money, and some of that's opportunity cost and some of that may very well be genuine savings. So I'm
Yeah.
curious how that whole world of detachment savings factors into this.
Yeah, and I think
Is that an unfair question?
no, it's not.
Okay.
And I think I was going to address that. We'll talk a little bit about sales and what's happening there, but talk to the board at the last board meeting. Really, I mean, we don't know exactly what that's going to be until we get to the end of the fiscal year. And I think there is right now we're on the positive side of it, right? So sales are up. That's it's a net positive to the district. So that's good for replenishing some of those reserves and some of the hits we took on the pump stations
And
and
maybe even finding some money for some pipeline
pipeline
replacement.
replacements. Well, and we're going to be going through the CIP. So that was really the idea is you're right, a dollar's a dollar, right? And as we bring these things forward, whether it's the cost of service study, the CIP, those are all decisions that are going to have to be made, or our reserves. I mean, our reserve levels, I believe they're recovering now. I believe over the next few months, we'll see some recovery there. They were direly low when we got to November. I think November was about the low point. But we are seeing some recovery and the picture doesn't look dark over the next few months. However, we want to see how the rest of the year goes. There's, just because we think sales are up now, we have no idea what's going to happen February, March,
Right.
April, May. So the idea was let's wait till we get to the fiscal year. Let's go through the budget season and, where we end up, we can decide kind of how we want
And so
to.
for now, in essence, those savings are sitting in reserves. Is that right? Is that kind of where we are?
Yeah, I mean, sales do lag the purchases. So
Yes.
we pay some of those water purchase costs up front. Obviously, we purchase a lot more water up through January as well. So some of those expense, like if you look right now, just close of the books as of December, I mean, we're 75% of our budgeted expenses for water purchases. So we're way above expense levels, but we know the sales are there too, right? So the sales will catch up, but we don't have all those numbers. Even right now, we don't have all those numbers in yet, and we won't know what the last 3 or 4 months bring. So that was kind of the idea. Yes, the pit, and this is why we don't need to make major, we don't need to go, major modifications here because I think we're on the positive side of things, but we don't want to.
And I guess what makes this a little easier is that at the end of the day, all of this operating and capital and reserves and so forth I don't mean to demean it, but it's really just numbers on the spreadsheet. It's, our money is all in the same account. It goes into the same account, comes out of the same account.
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple, we have a small revenue stream from the tax roll
Right.
and things like that, but in
And-
essence,
and
yes, it's all,
Investment,
yeah.
investment income.
Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
some different incomes that come in, but you're right. The dollars come in, the dollars go out, whether it's capital or that.
Right.
Eventually, it all does kind of balance here.
And
There's
we
not-
use a spreadsheet to tell us which dollar has which flavor on it. I mean, that's basically what we're doing.
And to be able to track
Yeah,
those
yeah,
costs,
yeah.
correct.
All right, well, is there any, you want to keep going because
That's a comment.
Just want to comment, our expenses are up too. And we only have so many avocados on the trees, so it's a negative year. Can I touch on the tanks for a second? Because that's another Band-Aid that just got ripped off.
on what?
The tank ladders, the spiral staircases, and what a debacle that was. 11 tanks. We had access to the tanks. It was OSHA approved. But the idea was floated to put these spiral staircases on, which cost about 100 grand per tank. And I think there's 11 tanks. I don't know how many were completed. The first one was engineered improperly, had to be removed. I sat at these meetings. I presented an option with drone surveillance, state approved, to inspect that vent on the top. Again, another example of why I may be not as friendly as I'm usually am at these meetings, because this is another Rainbow board decision to press on with an optional expenditure of nearly $1 million to make a convenient spiral staircases, which were optional. The second thing I'd like, because I have to leave for this other meeting, I'd like a tasker to look, since we mentioned meters, we spent $10 million or whatever it ended up being, swapping out meters, chasing the difference between 5% we couldn't account for water sales. What was, we were being billed by the water authority versus what you were receiving. And one of the change orders that came out in this process was nearly a 7-figure prevailing wage contract to put dirt back in around the meters because they were behind. They rented another machine. The Rainbow staff was working weekend. They were behind a deadline that we created ourselves. This wasn't state driven. This wasn't anybody else. But now we got $1 million to put dirt back. And my meter sat open for a while. I could have gladly filled it, but no, we had to go prevailing wage. It's these sorts of little things that are millions and millions of dollars that really bug some of us.
I'll be happy to take this up later over a bar, over a burger. Because I really do have to go to another meeting. That's the deal.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Moving on to the CIP. Yeah, are we okay? Okay, good. Again, not we've had some adjustments here earlier in the year that were more significant than this. So
Yep.
so these are pretty light.
Paul,
We do we talked a little bit about this on the groundwater study. Again, just wanting to complete that feasibility study. We were 98% done, and what's happening right now is the Bureau of Reclamation is reviewing that because it's a certain format that these feasibility studies are prepared in that actually make them eligible for future funding. And so this is a budget amount. I don't know if this is, it might be something less than this. It actually takes us to wrap this thing up depending on what kind of comments we get back. But we'd at least like to have a finished product we put on the shelf that's grant eligible should we ever want
this
to
is
move
Hope,
forward.
right?
Yes.
It's Hope.
Yes. So, and this was actually already budgeted costs. They just didn't roll over from the prior year. So we want to make sure it's in the budget. That was it. There's a $50,000 our isolation valve installation program. So obviously we have a lot of old valves out there. Some of them, most of them work, some of them don't. And so our operations group, this is in-house. And usually this is more of a opportunistic thing. We're doing shutdowns and they
Go ahead,
realize
the isolation valve while we're here.
that kind of a thing. They've done quite a bit this year. We budgeted 100,000. That was kind of a, shot in the dark for how many valves we think we're going to replace. They're trending a little above that, which means we're replacing more valves, which is actually a really good thing. And we're doing it in-house. So it's really efficient. So we're gonna, proposals to add 50,000 to finish out the year doing those kind of opportunistic valve replacements where we have
And
where we
that
have
was on a
bad
base of
valves.
how much?
100 plus the 50.
50% increase. Are we gonna get a 50% increase in the number of valves replaced or even more
A
than that?
great question for Robert. We can we'll touch on that in the next operations report.
Okay.
Good news story.
Really question on that?
Yeah.
So the staff replaces the valves. Does that get charged against CapEx or does it,
Mhm.
do we just eat it in
Mhm.
in increased labor costs?
No, this is yeah, it gets charged against capital, both labor and the
So that
And
comes,
materials,
that comes
labor.
out of the staffing or,
absolutely it's materials and labor.
got it.
Correct.
Okay.
Couple of good news stories, and I think you've already heard these, but we had originally, this was part of, again, of the County Water Authority agreement, the settlement agreement. There were certain tasks to decommission some of the facilities that wouldn't be used anymore, the connections, the connections down south. And the first was what we called an interim decommissioning, and it once kind of after the fact, and now we're working through these operations plans, turns out those facilities actually are going to be useful. Like you can use them for air vacs and places to drain the pipeline and things like that. So actually what happened, their operations staff jumped in and said, hey, we're not going to decommission these things. We got uses for them. And so it actually just became an unnecessary expense. And so we're taking that 200,000 out of the CIP. It's not an expense that Rainbow's going to incur. So 200,000 back into the kitty. The other one, we had budgeted the 600,000 for the Gopher Canyon pipeline replacement, and in essence, pavement. There was some other costs too. I think staff was a little more efficient than they had originally budgeted in that, but really the pavement cost came in much lower than budget, and so ended up that project cost about 275,000. So we're giving back the 325 here. The last project is the Morrow Tank rehabilitation. We talked about this at E&O. The Morrow Tank, which sits above, not the Morrow Reservoir, not the big Morrow Reservoir, but there's a steel tank that sits there adjacent to it.
Tank.
4 million gallon.
4 million gallons. Yeah.
Smaller than 150, but yeah. That sits adjacent to that Morrow Reservoir, and it's had settling issues, and so we've been running at about half capacity over the last few years, but still having issues there. And so we're basically a project to fund some surveys. So we're going to set some benchmarks and see how the settling is going, and do some structural analysis on the tank, and basically come up with options to what do we do with it? Can we remediate it? Do we need to replace it? What happens there? So, but we'd like to jump on that because it's obviously, it's a critical piece of infrastructure. So we want to get that planning effort going now. So there's some budget there to $100,000 budget there to do that study.
We went over this and I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment, but, my recollection is that our first priority with this additional work was to collect more specific data about the subsidence and to determine what the cause of the subsidence is. And then the follow-on effort would be to suggest options as to how to proceed, given what the data talks to us about. Is that
Correct.
Am I on point?
You're on point there, but this is intended to cover both of those.
Good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
this is
Good.
intended to cover both of those. So take us to the point where we have some recommendations on what to do there. So all in all, the CIP adjustment's actually a $335,000 decrease from the original budget, given the reductions from the County Water Authority connections and the Gopher Canyon extension. So really the adjustments that we're recommending today, no net to the operating, but just within the budgets, adjusting these various items, and then CIP reducing that by 335 to reflect these changes. And I think we've already kind of talked through this. There is a table in front of you that gives you a kind of a more detailed breakdown of the entire CIP. So, you know, things we've already done, updated budget, and then the mid-year adjustments that I just talked through. So that table's in front of you. Again, we were going to talk through a little bit. I think we've already done this. You know, our revenues are up, but also our expenses are up. We've kind of talked through some of that, and that's really just based on sales. As far as wastewater goes, we're right at budget, right about 50% on revenues, right about 50% on expenditures. We're actually just a little over on revenue, a little under on expenditure, but basically we're right where we figured we would be. A lot of pressure still on wastewater. You know, making the back payments to the city of Oceanside is we're ending that. You know, it ends in June, I think, is when we're kind of back
Are
up
we
to
making
square,
monthly payments? That what we're doing?
Uh-huh.
Okay, playing catch up.
playing catch up, and
Okay.
so that continues to kind of constrain funding in the wastewater division. But again, that is coming to an end, but it has put some strain on that division.
How did that happen in the first place? Just out of curiosity.
They had some staff turnover on their side.
They didn't
and
bill us.
They didn't
is
bill
the
us.
Bottom line, they
Yeah.
didn't bill us.
The auditors missed it.
And so, yeah,
And-
so we've had to, that's something that came to my
And,
attention
And on us
the
is that
first week I was here.
We had money budgeted and didn't spend it.
well, but on us, we know that damn payment is due and we didn't pick up on it and ask a question, which might have
Yeah.
helped us not
Well,
be
it's
behind the bullet.
a little painful now, yeah.
Because we budgeted for it, right? We did.
How much did it come to total?
2.5 million. Yeah,
That's a
Million
big
here,
chunk.
million there. Pretty soon we're talking big money. Bill.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
So that's all I've got for the mid-year. Pretty, I think pretty light this year.
What do you do? Again, this is back to this whole money management thing. We have a $330,000, $335,000 reduction in our CIP. That's what it says.
Yeah.
Is that a reduction in spending money that we basically did not have or had to borrow to pay? What do we do with that 335?
Yeah.
Is it a physical amount that we have at our disposal for something?
Yes and no. This one is a little interesting because the two projects that we're deducting,
Right,
say, you know, we had the 200,000 for the county water authority work, and then also the Gopher Canyon work. So both of those, well, the county water authority was part of the $10 million loan to
Right,
fund
okay.
fund years 1 and 2 of the CIP. So that was in there. That actually would be. So you take that out, now you have 200,000. We added the Gopher Canyon to that, the ability to fund through those restricted reserves. You want to spend that money anyways, because you know, it's got time frames on it. And you know, that's what it's used for. So in essence, you paid for a good portion of the Gopher Canyon is what you did with that money. That actual 275 expense. We are showing a $335,000 decrease. But you know, we had an increase on the pump station. We had increases before
Right,
on the CIP. So this is just helping to bring us back.
well, and the whole,
more back in
the whole
line.
Gopher Canyon pipe replacement was
Mid-year emergency.
mid-year
project.
emergency, unbudgeted, completely unbudgeted.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, thank you. Okay, Dwayne. Your turn, Dwayne.
Thank you. Thank you.
I also for creating the labor. That kind of stuff is honestly music to my ears. My background, non-farming background, I work with performance and infinitum. When I was working on the high school bond, even in the public sector, if you would, we had to do bonded indebtedness against property, property taxes,
Mhm.
run some scenarios and the like.
Mhm.
So what I was taken by, and the reason I didn't dwell on it as much in my initial presentation, was how the 2023, the June, I think 2023 budget study was really kind of driven by an overriding assumption that it's in the district's best interest to increase fixed, revenues, if you will, for service costs and the like. And so, when I'm running scenarios and so forth, if I'm okay, sorry, when I'm running scenarios, I mean, if my goal is, okay, I'm going to create a pro forma that's going to support increasing fixed charges because it's beneficial for X, Y, or Z, that basically is what the takeaway that I'm sharing with you when I've just read the report and the like. What I would have expected is in the appendix, maybe alternative pro formas run on different other assumptions and the like. And what I'm concerned about is the absence of that. And I know from prior meetings that I've been in, this 218 thing, which honestly, if you look at the legal background, one court reverses the other court, that reverses the other court or whatever, and we take this 218 as gospel, there are decisions all over the place. So you can decide, as far as I can see, based on at least the legal history, to take whatever course you may reasonably be able to justify, because it all comes down to proportionality. So, to Bill, to your point, I mean, there's one little potential silver lining with having more residential users and a lower agricultural sector. Not that I'm in favor of that. I'm obviously in favor of supporting the sector, but those adjustments that I'm talking about, pro forma adjustments, fixed costs, unit costs, you can run multiple, particularly with computers nowadays, alternatives, and you may find, I'm hopeful you'll find, that any adjustments that you make on the residential side of the equation to help out the agricultural won't be as onerous as you may think. We have to run the numbers, but what I'm hoping to encourage you is to take that exercise and the like, because to your point, you asked about fertilizer. I've cut back in fertilizer. Now, why? Because my water costs are up. All right. Now, that fine as far as trying to pay the water bill, but it didn't help L&M or Grandjetto or whatever. And if you check with them, you'll find their sales are down. Okay. Irrigation companies. Okay. I'm not doing the level of irrigation improvements on my own farms that I would otherwise do because I'm paying water bills. So there is a cumulative economic impact that may not be showing up on anybody's pro forma, but I'm sharing with you from a farming standpoint and discussions with my colleagues, if you would, in the supply side of the equation and so forth. So whatever you're doing here has, besides just the potential of keeping us in business, as an indirect benefit as well. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on this item,
This is action, yes.
I was asking, are we asked to recommend this mid-year budget adjustment to the board?
Yes, please, if you would.
Um,
Thanks, Dwayne.
give me a second here.
We can take that down, yeah.
Staff recommendation is option 1 to approve amended operating budget FY 24-25 as provided above in table A, which is the table we just looked at with Jake, with no net operating budget impact and a water capital project decrease of $335,000. So is there a motion?
I so move that we adopt the operating adjustments and CIP mid-year adjustments as you have just outlined and
Okay.
shown on this spreadsheet.
Okay, so Bill moves that we recommend option 1 to the board. Is there a second?
Second.
Pete seconds. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Okay, done.
Very good.
Review of the monthly finance packet.
Yes, our finance department has done a great job putting together this packet. Outlines a lot of the stuff we've talked about today. Sales are up a little over 8,100 through mid-year. Typically we're 65% of our sales happen in the first 6 months. So I don't expect 16,000. It probably won't double. February, March, April typically are kind of our lower months. Depends on the weather,
Mhm.
but February is starting to look like it might be a low month as far as sales go. The weather keeps coming. But anyways, yeah, about 1,300 acre feet higher than we were year prior, and really a little bit more in line with what we saw the couple of years prior to that. And those years, I think we ended up in that, that 13,000 acre feet.
Question,
Yes.
does the water usage that was used to put out fires recently have any impact on your financial statements?
It certainly comes out of our reservoirs. So we purchase that water. To be honest, it's usually not enough to make a material difference. We do estimate whether it's anytime we have a leak or fire protection, we estimate those things for our water loss audit at the end of the year. So what are our real losses versus what are our apparent losses? So we do purchase that water, but in essence, yeah, it's in the noise as part of that water loss. Yeah. So,
Anything else? Pete?
And we
No,
have had
that's it.
3 fires, right? We had the garden fire
Yeah.
and then we had the 2 on 395 simultaneous fires.
yeah,
I watched the first one.
yeah.
Did you?
And they were definitely, yeah, they were definitely using water from our hydrants during the Lilac fire. So up by the Hutton tank, they were drawn right off the Hutton tank.
Yeah.
A lot of that firefighting effort overnight, though, was actually nighttime helicopters, and they were taking from Vessels Ranch. They were dipping in the
Oh.
ponds. So a lot of those aerial actually doesn't, unless it comes from the heli hydrant, it doesn't really come from our system. But I had that question before, even on the heli hydrant, when they took 35 drops or something, somebody asked, well, how much?
How much
And
water is that?
it was like $75 worth of water, when you actually get down to it. So
15 units is
Ye-
about what you got.
right, something like that. So it wasn't, yeah, for the value.
I
Yeah.
don't know if you knew, but Pella Mesa Resort turned on all their sprinklers
Yeah.
in request from the fire people.
Oh, yeah, we could see some demand increase. Paula Mesa's on wells, but
Yep.
yeah, but I did see that also on Lilac Road, where the people got evacuated. There were sprinklers that were just running, and they're off our services. So yeah, it might get a little uptick, a little bit of sales there. So that's the good news. Our reserves were up just a little bit, tick back up over the 8 million mark. We will see an uptick in that because of the refunding of the initial exit fee payment. We did we funded the whole thing. So again, by the end of January's report, we should see basically that 3.2 million back into those reserves too. So starting to get to a little bit healthier levels, and like I said before, we're kind of hopeful over the next few months that we'll see some pretty good recovery then, and that may help with some of our CIP requests and things like that we're struggling through right now.
Mhm.
So I think that's about it. That's the highlights. Unless there's any questions?
I was two small things. First of all, I just noticed there was quite a little peak in customer service calls back in October.
Mm-hmm. Billing issue. That was the billing issue.
Oh, right. Okay, thank you. And then I noticed the name Mary Aykroyd.
Yes.
I've interim finance manager.
Yes.
I've never had the pleasure of meeting her. Is she?
So she's a retired former CFO from the North County Transit District. She worked for years for the North County Transit District. And when Rick departed, really the primary focus, we wanted somebody overseeing the audit. to really kind of push the audit across the finish line. And obviously Mary, who came recommended from a colleague, has a lot of experience with. So, so Mary's come in, she's part-time, but very, very experienced, and she's done a great job actually kind of keeping all of these things kind of moving forward, not only the audit, but even the monthly finance reports and things like that, and actually cleaning some stuff up along the way. She's been a very valuable part-time resource over this few months. And the beauty of it too is now she got to overlap with Rick a little bit. She's been here, kind of got her feet wet over the last couple of
She's gonna
months.
overlap with,
And she's going to overlap with our new finance manager. So it provides us some kind of continuity as he comes
is there
in.
an expectation that she might stay on?
Um, we really like her.
Mhm.
She is retired, so it's you know, and she's a PERS retiree, so it's a bit limited on even what she can do. But I think she likes helping us, and there may be some specific tasks that we may
Okay.
you know, think about. Maybe some audit things.
Right.
She's very efficient too. That's what kind of got me thinking. Maybe bringing her back for some specific tasks might be a good thing.
And, I should have raised it earlier. My apologies. Where are we on audit?
It's
I really kind of expected that we would have heard
Yeah.
more.
Us too. It has taken a little bit longer when when Rick did give his notice. Part of the issue was the auditor's schedule.
I remember that.
Yeah, because just didn't have the time to get prepared for the original schedule, and so and they're booked. They get booked solid for months on end, and so they really didn't get started on the actual audit work. They did some of the field work in December, but really didn't get started on it till January, and so they're just wrapping it up now. So we're still within the window, but yeah, has lagged a little bit this year.
My recollection, and I think it was under Tracy's last year,
hmm
that we had this audit completely wrapped, baked, done by like November.
Yeah, I think we brought it in December that year.
was
When
hoping-
I was first here, right?
And given that we won an award for
The GFOA.
off of that, is the reason why this has taken so long largely because we could not get in the auditor's queue at the same time that Tracy got us into the auditor's queue the year before?
Certainly the staff turnover pushed us back. Yes. So, everything ready, auditor scheduled. It is pretty tight. And so it just got, yeah.
It's feeling like the old days when I got more, Pete, you were around, got more uncomfortable because we weren't closing the books and it was like long time after the close.
Yeah.
6 months or more after the close of the year, 7 months, 8 months,
Yeah.
closing up.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we can get back on that because if our books are in order, the way and
Shouldn't take much,
and we
right?
won an award, then for our financial
Right.
whatever, gosh, you would think that we ought to be able to get this thing closed by Thanksgiving.
Yes.
I mean,
And I think normally that will be the case.
Okay, all right,
But it did. Staff turnover had it.
and
had
if
its
this
impact.
consulting company has a hard time putting us as a fairly compliant entity, easy go, early in the shift, maybe we need to look for an auditing consultant that can give us more of a guaranteed.
I
early
totally
start.
agree.
Yeah.
I did not like the Oceanside mistake at
Mm.
all. And I really wouldn't have wanted to go with the same company.
Yeah, I think we had them under contract for a few years, but it is up, and I think the intent was we'll likely solicit multiple proposals for the upcoming year. It's good to do that every few years
Yeah,
anyways.
yeah, you can't keep
Yeah.
the same auditor forever.
Yeah,
That's
it's good to do that anyways.
how
and
you get
so-
Enron or whatever it is.
Yeah, so I think we're all on the same page, but I
Okay.
think this is probably an exception, is not
Okay.
so much the rule, and
Good.
we'll get back on track this coming year.
We're at 6.5 months.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
And it has been.
We're,
And we should be able to close by November. I mean, we
Yeah.
really should.
And some of it has been on the auditor side, just because, you know, they were in their defense. We had an original schedule. We didn't meet that schedule. And so then now they're squeezing us in on a later date. And so it, you know, but it bumps into other clients that they're servicing and things like that. So it's been a little bit of a combination of both. But we're
And we had,
there.
we had
So,
some staffing losses, key staffing losses in finance, right?
yes, we did.
And that probably set us back on our ear a little bit, didn't it?
A little bit as far as those things go. Yep.
Okay, well, for next time, I believe that we are looking at whatever conclusion of the mid-year budget review might be needed, follow on or not. But I think that's done for this year.
I think so.
So
Yep.
we'll start now the process of preparing the next year's budget, right? That'll be on the agenda for next time. And also, what was the other thing for next time? Oh, boy. I would love to get the staffing data back but there was one other,
Joint meeting next time?
yes, that's joint meeting is in May. We still have an April meeting ahead of us. I'll think of it. And if I do, I'll send somebody a note. Okay, because it seems to me there was something else.
Fair enough.
Senior moment, brain is overloaded. A lot of farming today.
we are meeting in March still, right?
Huh?
We are gonna have a meeting. in
March, yeah, I would hope.
You
I would
said
hope
April.
so. Yeah.
So I want to make
Oh,
sure.
yes, well, we have March and April.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Then I think we can consider ourselves adjourned.
thank you,
Right?
sir.
Very good.
QED, let's quit and eat dinner.
Congratulations, Mr. Chair.
Same to